Let me ask you this question. Have you ever competed before, and have you ever sort of had that feeling like, man, I don't want to let my guys down. I don't want to let my team down. I don't want to let my instructor down. And you get really, really focused on that sort of just winning, right? If you have, then you've probably been like me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share two stories with you. And again, these are to contrast one another so that this way you kind of get the point that I'm trying to bring across. So the first story starts when I was a white belt, right? And when I was a white belt, there was the biggest tournament on the East Coast back in the day for us used to be the Arnold Classic. Back in 2004, that was like the biggest tournament this side of the Mississippi in the country. And there was like 10 grand online. So you would have like black belts competing. I mean, it wasn't uncommon to see like, I think in 2005, I watched Saulo Ribeiro go against Marcelo Garcia. So, I mean, big names. And so this tournament was going on. But they did this weird thing in the no-gi day. So, the gi day was normal, blue belts, white belts, purple belts, so on. In the no-gi day, they simply took white belts to purple belts, essentially, and that was an amateur division. And then the professional was brown belt to black belt. So I'm, at this point in 2004, I've been training for about 4 months, and I'd wrestled, but 4 months. And I'm walking around in the bullpen with all these guys saying, like, how have you been training? And everybody's telling me, like, 4 years, 2 years, 6 years, 8 years. And so I realized, man, I'm in over my head. I didn't even meet one white belt in the no-gi day. So my first match comes up, and I step out there, and it was one of the guys that I had talked to. He had taken second at the Pans as a blue belt that previous year, and he was a purple belt. He's been training for like 6 years at this point. And I remember just looking at him and laughing. I was like, oh man, dude's about to smash me. And I kind of accepted it. So the only thing really in my mind at that point, because I knew I wasn't going to win. It just wasn't happening. I was just like, well, I'm going to try to hit one of my takedowns, or I'm going to try to hit one of my techniques. And so we start rolling, and I ended up beating him about 6-2, yeah. And 6-2, I beat him with 3 takedowns to his sweep. And to be honest, if the guy would have just played his game and pulled guard and stuff, he probably would have beat me. And I don't know if there was like a psychological edge to it, because what happened was I was wearing a singlet. For you guys that train now, you guys are spoiled. You guys have like all this cool gear and stuff like that. I didn't have any of that stuff. So I wore my singlet that I used to wear in wrestling to no-gi tournaments. So I think he thought I was a wrestler, and I don't know, man. It was weird. But anyway, I won the match. I beat a big purple belt. It was a big win for me. Now, moving forward, let me tell you another story that kind of goes the other way with this. When I was a black belt, this is in 2012, I had a chance to compete against a bunch of really good black belts. It was a 16-man invitational tournament in Columbus, Ohio. And we ended up taking around 24 of our guys to this tournament. And that's a pretty big number for our gym at the time, going out almost 3 hours away, 3.5 hours away. And so I was super pumped to have that big turnout for my guys, but I was also really nervous because I wanted to look good in front of them. I wanted them to see, how good their instructor was. You just feel like, man, I don't want to let everybody down. I don't want to let my team down. I want my students to look at me a certain way, whatever. And I got so hung up on that. I got so nervous. I got so focused on, I just want to win. And I got out there into the match. I didn't really fight for takedowns, which is pretty rare for me. And when I played the bottom game, I just pulled like full guard and locked up, and I didn't really go in for anything. It was so weird. And at about a minute left in the match, I finally opened up and I started to really fire off, and I was getting some success. But then it's too late, too little, too late. After the match, I was so mad at myself. I got up and I wasn't mad at my opponent, because obviously he did what he was supposed to do. But for me, I was incredibly upset with myself, because I walked off the mat and I was like, man, I don't know who that guy was. I was like, I just didn't know who it was. It wasn't me. It was someone else. And so what I'm trying to bring to your attention is a lot of times people get really, really hung up on just winning, right? They want to win, and they don't want to let people down. They've got all these other things going on in their head. And my best performances, and it took me a while to like piece this all together, were the times where you just found that perfect mental state, right? Where you weren't worried about winning, you weren't worried about losing, you were just worried about hitting your techniques. And so that's what I always stress to my guys now. I'm like, man, look, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. You have to come to acceptance with that, right? Like, you're going to lose matches. It's going to happen. The best guys in the world still lose matches. But if you go out and you execute your techniques and you just go after that person, you're not worried about winning or losing. You're just like, I'm going to try to hit my moves that I've been working on, hit my game plan, that kind of stuff. First off, you're going to win more matches than you're going to lose. And secondly, if you go out there and you fire off, if you do lose, a lot of times you're going to feel way more satisfied with your performance than you would if you didn't do that. So for instance, there have been times where I've won matches where I won on like an advantage or something, and I was so pissed at myself because I didn't really play my game, and I felt kind of hamstrung to really get after it. And so I would win on an advantage because I would just hang on to it. And I was like, man, that sucked. And then there would be times where I would lose a match, but me and the guy would fire off at each other. There was one match in particular, I remember that it was a crazy score, like 14 to 16 or something. And it was a shootout, right? We're just both scoring like crazy. After the match was over, everybody was coming up to us like, man, that was an amazing match. It was so much fun to watch, whatever. And for me, I was like, man, even though I lost by 2 points, I executed my game. I threw everything that I had at the guy. I didn't hold back at all. And, I played my game to a T, and everybody enjoyed watching it. So I'm like, I felt satisfied with that performance. And so when you go out there to compete, you got to get away from the worry of losing. You got to come to acceptance with losing is going to happen, and you just got to go out there and think your techniques and execute and fire off. And one, you will be more successful. You'll win more matches than you'll lose, for sure. And secondly, if you do lose or if you win, if you go out there and play your game and sort of express your style of jiu-jitsu the best you can, you'll be satisfied with that regardless. All right, guys, that's it.